Should we keep that on so I can fidget with it the whole time?
Fidget, yeah.
Yeah.
So the question for the day is, I want to know about some of the concerts you've been to, and like the key moment for each. You probably have a key moment or something you remember most about each one of them.
Each one of them?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
rattle off what kind of music you like first, I guess.
well, I mean, in high school, and honestly, really recently, I was into alternative music, like alternative rock.
Okay.
And even like borderline emo music. That was the music that
You gonna
was
paint your
popular.
fingernails black?
I mean, I didn't get that deep into it, you know,
okay.
but no, that's what I was listening to a lot in high school.
Okay.
And so my very first concert was Jimmy Eat World, which
Yeah.
awesome. Jimmy Eat World, right when the Invented album came out.
Okay.
I can't say if it's their fourth or fifth album. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anybody who's into Jimmy Eat World knows the Invented album, and that concert rocked.
Was that
super
in
hard.
a smaller venue? That was a smaller
Yeah,
venue.
so
wasn't it?
I mean, unless you go to like either the, you know, at the time it's the Taco Bell Arena. It might have a different name where Boise State play their basketball games, or we have the Idaho Center out in Nampa, which is like an outdoor arena kind of deal.
Right.
Unless you're going there, those are like the bigger acts that come to town.
Okay.
But for a band like Jimmy Eat World or some of the other guys that I saw in high school,
Right.
That's the Knitting Factory.
Okay,
Which
okay.
yeah is a little bit of a smaller venue.
Downtown and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
holds how many? Couple hundred?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not very big.
Well, you're pretty close. You can get pretty close.
Oh
up to
yeah, you're right up on them. You
Yeah.
are right up on them.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that was my first concert, which I was super stoked for.
Is that the one that you and your brother Zach went to together?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I picked you up at like 2 a.m. or something, but it wasn't over really late.
Yeah, because I mean, it starts at 9:30 or 10 or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah. If I remember right, Mom wasn't super stoked about it
She
either,
wasn't
was
happy
she?
at all about it. No, I had to pull for you on that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that was my birthday gift that year. Because it happened like it. You know, my birthday's in May, and I want to say the concert was either that same month or a week into June. And that was like, I want to go see Jimmy Eat World Invented tour for my birthday.
Right.
Those are my
And the Knitting Factory it's almost like a nightclub.
yeah.
So that's really where the issue got a little fidgety with Mom.
Oh, really?
And it was, I picked you up at 1:30 a.m. from downtown where you and your brother, how old were you at the time? 17? 16,
16 or 17, yeah.
Yeah. So Zach was what, 14, 15?
Yeah.
So two guys, two teenagers,
yeah.
at a Jimmy Eat World concert downtown Boise at 1:30 a.m.
Yeah.
When I finally
That's
picked
so
you up.
funny that she was so fidgety about it because
I don't think it was worried about y'all. It was worried about everybody else, right?
I know,
'Cause
but
y'all
there
were
was
young.
there was just as many kids just like us at the concert.
She didn't know that though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And you know, and you know this already, but I promote, as long as it's legal, moral, ethical, and nobody gets hurt too bad.
yeah.
I promote as much fun as I can for you
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
So I'll fight for you kids
Yeah.
to have as much fun
Yeah,
as possible.
and you know, like they know what they're doing there, right? Like,
Yeah, okay.
When you get in, you show your ID. They give you a wristband that lets you near the bar or whatever,
Right,
you know,
right,
and they
or
won't
not.
let. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not. No one's going to be serving the because they know that like
Yeah.
you anywhere from 15 to 45 might have been at that place. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Because I mean, Jimmy Eat World they had their biggest hits in the very early 2000s. This would have been 2011 or 12 when we went and
Okay.
saw them, you know.
Okay.
So like, yeah, that was awesome. And I remember Zach, it blew his mind.
Right.
Like I said,
His
first
first
concert,
concert, yeah.
and Zach's more into music than I am.
Right.
And I remember afterward, he maybe a day or two later, he was like, I could see him kind of like about it, and I'm like, what? And he's like, I've been listening to their albums, and I wish I had listened to more of their music before we went.
Oh, okay.
Because it was almost like a band that I was into, and I was like, Zach, go with me. Let's go do this concert.
Right.
And he, after the concert was over, he downloaded a bunch of their music onto his, shuffle or whatever.
He would have enjoyed them more.
And
had
he was like, I only knew the one or two, or
Right,
three.
right.
He's like, I wish I had downloaded a bunch of their music and gotten to know it, because That's where I was at. I was singing along with everything.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Well, live music is always so. It seems like it's just so much better. It's so cool.
Yeah, live
see
music
stuff
is
live.
awesome. You know, I don't think I've ever been to a concert of someone I wasn't into.
Right.
But you know, the openers of those rinky-dink bands are rinky-dinker than that.
Right,
and
right.
So in a lot of cases, you've never even heard of the
Right.
openers.
But they're still cool.
They're dope.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
They sound great. You know,
Right.
it's greatness. Yeah. That was the first one. My first 2 concerts were at the Knitting Factory. I
Who
think
was your second band?
Jack's Mannequin.
Jack's Man. I've heard of them too.
Yep.
Heard of both of those. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the front man of that one, his name is Andrew McMahon, and he was the front man of a band called Something Corporate, and then he went on to found Jack's Mannequin, and then most recently he's been in kind of a solo project called Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, and he's had like a hit in the last couple of years. But
Gotcha.
yeah, Jack's Mannequin was awesome.
And these are kind of alternative, kind of rock.
Alternative rock bands.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I was into the emo scene, you know, as emo as it got. I never went to Van's Warped Tour,
Right.
you know, which came to town a few times, and
Yeah.
kind of wish I had done that. But a lot of my friends in high school were going to Warped Tour and seeing a bunch of big bands.
I think one of the ways I talked your mom into it, by the way, was that she, as a 14-year-old, hit them all.
See, that's why it surprises me that she was finicky about the whole
well,
thing.
but you know what though?
Because tell me,
Let me tell you why she might have been finicky.
Okay.
Because she went to The Alarm and Thompson Twins and Depeche Mode and all these alternative bands from the 80s,
Yeah.
late 80s.
And alternative bands in the 80s were
drew a lot of Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not talking just pot, we're talking all the things.
Yeah. Cocaine was big back then. Kids didn't really do that, but there was a lot of other pills and stuff going on.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
a lot of those, and just for some context, a lot of those bands would show up at just dives, like, and
Yeah.
one of the first times I saw your mom that I thought, oh, she's kind of cute, was I think she might have been 14 and I was 19, right? And I saw her, me and Gary Phillips were goofing around at the Bronco Bowl, and there was tons of parking on the backside, which there never was. And we had found out there was a club there called the Apple, but we didn't know there was a small arena that held about 250
I think
people.
you've told me about this place
Yeah.
before, yeah.
And she
well,
was
yeah,
back-
Bronco Bowl, I know.
Yeah,
You've seen a couple
and
of
Bronco
these.
Bowl had this arena back there, and The Alarm was playing.
Okay.
And The Alarm was
What is the Alarm's hit?
I couldn't tell you. I'll find it though.
Okay.
I want to say but that's I think
They were
that's the
just
call.
like In Excess and all those
yeah,
guys. They sounded
same
a lot
kind of
alike,
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when you do that melody, that makes me think of In Excess.
I think that's the Cult, by the way. Now that I say
the
now
Cult,
that
In
I sing
Excess, Depeche Mode. They were all kind of in that same.
that. Kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really played on the radio. But her
Yeah,
older
those
brother,
were the eyeliner, paint your nails dudes.
and her brother was an eyeliner, paint your nails guy.
no,
at the time.
Uncle Wes was.
Uncle Wes was.
I knew that Uncle Wes was into that music, but I didn't know he was dressing the part too.
He was dark hair, fair skin, black trench coat, the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
That makes me laugh so hard because
Yeah.
knowing Grandma Darlene and Grandpa Bobby,
Yeah.
that they couldn't be any farther from that.
and I
they
think
they looked at Uncle Wes and said, "Our poor baby
Yeah.
has gone astray."
they probably said, "What did we do wrong?
I know.
Where did we go wrong?"
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But
yeah, and now Uncle Wes is like the premier realtor in the area. He's the most clean cut.
great dude all
Yeah,
the way
yeah,
around.
yeah.
Nicest guy in the
By
world.
the way, speaking of Uncle Wes and music,
he was in a band for a while.
I know you've told me about this.
Yeah.
And it was that kind of music, you think?
No, it was heavy metal.
Heavy metal.
Like speed metal. It was like. And the funniest part about it was the name of the band was Reem, R-H-E-E-M. And it seemed like he let me listen to a couple of their tracks one time, and every song had like the word Reem in it or something, you know.
Yeah.
I think it was their shtick. But it was heavy metal, it was fast.
That's funny.
Yeah, but he and I didn't hang out, but me and Gary saw all the people back there, and we kind of floated around right as they were letting out. And as they opened the doors to go out, me and Gary just walked in, and we saw the freaky deakiest freaks there ever were. And I spotted Wes. I'm like, Wes, and which your mom's brother, and I saw him, and then I said, "Who's this with you?" And he's like, "It's my sister." I'm like, "Oh shoot."
Yeah.
And she was quite a bit younger.
Yeah.
But what surprised me was that her parents, I don't know if they might have just thought they were going out and doing stuff. I really don't know if they knew they were hitting these
bar, or not bars, but dive
these
joints.
concerts where there was freaky deakies. Yeah, the emos and the.
I'll tell my quick story about Uncle Wes and music, and then I want to give me a rundown of the places because I know of a couple. You're talking The Alarm, Depeche Mode, but as far as I know, Mom and Wes saw some dudes before they got big.
Yeah.
So wait, let me tell you okay.
Which they saw more concerts than I did.
Yeah. So back it up a couple years when I was 11 or 12.
Right.
The first iPod came out.
Oh yeah.
iPods had started coming out.
Is that the little tiny square one?
Well, there was different versions of it. The first one had the whole like trackpad on it and everything that you could. So it was pretty intense, right?
Right.
And it was this big.
Okay.
It was thick, and so. For like 2 or 3 years on my birthday list was I want an iPod.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And on my birthday one year, I don't remember which year it was, but I opened it up and it was the iPod Shuffle.
Okay.
Which was the first of its kind. It didn't have a screen on it.
Tiny square one?
It was a little square and it had a clip on the back and a circle so you could go forward and
backward. Came in all kinds of cool colors.
Yep, and mine was orange, right? And specifically, you guys told me it was Texas orange.
Texas orange,
right?
yeah.
Which it might have been a little brighter than that, but
yeah.
But and so I was like, let's load it up, let's go get the music for it. And Mom was like, it's already loaded. And I was like, what? And she's like, when I was in Texas, I bought it, I gave it to Uncle Wes, and he loaded it to the gills.
What did he load it with?
Everything he had.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
So and I remember, and he printed me off a list of everything that was on it.
That's
right?
Awesome. Yeah.
And he didn't buy it all on iTunes. It was just whatever music he had.
Back
right?
then, we were downloading illegally too.
Oh yeah. Well, this was before iTunes had really been adopted, and it was you burnt your CDs onto your hard drive, and then you listened to them, and so you could put that onto yeah.
Gotcha.
And so I remember that was my first introduction to it was the All American Rejects first album.
Okay.
The entire album was on there.
Yeah.
And because I remember it was in alphabetical order, and then you could shuffle it up, right?
Yeah.
And so that I remember at the very top of the list was that first album of our All American Rejects.
Right.
There was some old Scorpions on there.
Wow.
There was, like I said, there was like 300 or 400 songs on there, which was huge at the time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking of some of the highlights. I remember, for some reason, that's the thing that's sticking in my mind like crazy is that first album from All American Rejects.
And you probably fell in love right then, didn't you?
Yep.
Who cares if it's great music or not? It's just
it was great music.
Okay.
Yeah. Which it's funny enough.
I'm not familiar with All American Rejects.
It's like I said, it's a little more on the emo side, which it's probably not your jam,
Right.
But funny enough, I'm not on the cutting edge of music anymore, and that's the stuff I find myself listening to at the gym and stuff now. Like even in the last month or so, I've been listening to the All American Rejects first album again, and being like, whatever, stop listening to this stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if there's so many other highlights on there. There was definitely the NXS, Depeche Mode. I'm trying to think if there was
Thompson
anything.
Twins.
I don't remember. I'm trying to remember.
Mom used to have some cassettes in a rack, and I'm trying to think.
But I'm sure it was just all the CDs that Uncle Wes had bought over the years and loaded up on his computer.
Probably a lot of good rock and roll too.
I can't remember. That's the thing that's sticking in my brain right now. I can't remember. There was a couple songs by Queens of the Stone Age. I don't know if you remember that band.
I don't even know who that is. Yeah,
that was a little bit more on the grunge side of things, like late '90s and stuff.
Right.
I wish I could remember.
I'll pull up that Alarm song and stick it in the comments after this thing is over.
Yeah.
It's a cool song, by the way.
Yeah.
But they only had one hit, but it was a cool song. Really cool song.
So back to Uncle Wes and Mom.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong. I believe they saw a little band called Guns N' Roses before anybody knew who they were.
Before they were big. And I think they opened for another big... Yeah, they were opening for somebody bigger.
Can you imagine Guns N' Roses opening for someone else?
Dude, I went to a concert where one of the greatest bands ever opened for two other bands.
Oh, yeah. You told me it was Van Halen opened for...
ZZ Top and then the Rolling Stones. In the 80s,
love them or hate them,
when it was supposed to be their last tour.
Yeah.
And I think they might still be touring.
Yeah.
But this is the 1980s.
So Guns N' Roses, before anybody knew who they were, And as the story goes, from what I've heard,
I think you're running down the right path here.
Axl
yeah.
Rose was wearing some
Buttless chaps. And he
By
spun
the way,
around.
we're not going to be in the habit of using any swear words, but it seems you have to say it because it sounds too good together.
I'll let you say it.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was wearing some assless chaps. That's almost like poetry
With
right
no
there.
pants underneath. So his cheeks were, shining.
Exposed.
Yeah. When he spun around, his cheeks were shining.
That's so funny.
And I
dude.
believe they either made him go change or shut down the concert. I think they just made him put some.
By the way,
pants
I heard recently,
Yeah.
and there was this song and another really, really famous song, but apparently "Sweet Child of Mine," that riff, do 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 do,
Yeah.
that was a warm up that Slash's guitar teacher or dad or someone had taught
taught
him to help warm his fingers up, and he turned it into that song.
That's cool. You know what? There's probably
That's
so much
crazy,
behind
right?
the scenes with music, isn't there?
Yep.
That we don't. Even
I
know
can't.
about.
I was listening to another podcast where they brought that up, and there was another huge famous song where that was just they turned their finger warm up into one of the biggest songs ever. You know
It
what
wouldn't
I mean?
have been Van Halen. And
No,
okay.
it was someone else.
Gotcha.
Do you know what it was?
What was that?
It was shout out to Dylan, my best buddy Dylan. It was on the podcast he did about the Halloween.
Yeah.
The Halloween
Yeah.
that piano, that eerie piano.
Yeah.
Was just a finger warm up that
For a piano
John
player.
Carpenter's dad had taught him, and he turned it into the
Dang,
eeriest,
the most iconic.
horror song
horror
of all
song
time.
ever.
Yep, was just a finger warm up that John
See, that's
Carpenter's
one of those.
dad.
That's one of those ones that it wouldn't be near as scary had you not had that piano, because
Yep.
you knew as soon as that piano started hitting, it's like Jaws, right?
Yeah.
Donna,
Yep,
Donna, Donna. You knew when that music came on, you're like, oh no, somebody's gonna die.
yeah, somebody's gonna die. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool how music
Yep.
can.
That's where I
do
remember.
that.
It was my buddy Dylan was on a podcast and they were talking movies,
Gotcha,
and he brought up the Halloween thing, and then the other guy brought up "Sweet Child of Mine."
gotcha.
Crazy, right?
My other favorite that you tell is when you went down to Salt Lake City with your buddy Carl.
To Salt,
Oh no, Vegas. Was it Vegas?
Yeah, yeah.
It was Vegas.
So I did go to Salt Lake twice with Carl.
And who'd you see in Salt Lake?
In Salt Lake, the first time we saw Chance the Rapper,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Who was huge. This was
Right.
for anybody who knows the timeline of it. This was when he had released his last mixtape before his debut album, and
Okay.
his mixtape blew up.
Right.
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 Um,
And this is a guy that never even signed with anybody, right? He's always
yeah,
been
super independent. Yeah, totally independent.
Gotcha,
Right.
okay, okay.
Now, opinion wise, I think that he fell off when he made his debut album.
Gotcha.
Right. We're talking the Coloring Books mixtape and everything before that. That's the stuff you want to listen to.
Gotcha.
Everything since then,
Gotcha.
leave it.
Okay.
You know.
And then another time in Salt
we
Lake,
saw Kid Cudi.
Kid Cudi.
Yep. And Zach went with us
Wait,
that time.
Does Kid Cudi Pride is the Devil? Is that Kid Cudi or is that
No, you're
Higher-
Pride is the Devil is J. Cole.
golly? Well, I've turned that on so loud in
J.
my
Cole
car
rocks, dude.
that people across the
Yep.
freeway have heard
No,
it.
Kid Cudi, yeah. So Kid Cudi
Cudi
was,
does.
and Kid Cudi played like a smaller joint.
Okay.
And so it was real packed and intimate.
intimate.
And fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. Super fun.
That's always cool when you
Yep.
get to do that.
Yep. And we went with a group of dudes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We went with a group. That was if
Now,
if-
Kid Cudi's, is he the one that does higher? I'm the highest in the room. Is that Kid
no,
Cudi?
that's Travis Scott. Yep.
I know the
You
songs
like that
because
one
I
too?
love them.
You like that one too?
Yeah,
I've
which
got
is
it.
which people that are watching this look at us and go,
I'll hook up
"What the heck?"
I'll hook up a couple of Kid Cudi songs for you that I think
Okay.
you'll enjoy.
Okay. Okay.
My couple of favorites are Up and Away. It might be my favorite from his
Okay.
first album. And dang, there's a song that he did that's not even from his album. It's from the Cruel Summer album, which is an album that Kanye did with everyone on his label.
Okay.
And there's a song that he has. It's called Creepers.
Right.
Creepers rocks real hard. Those might be two of my favorites
Of
by
Kid
him.
Cudi's. Did he
Yep.
do that in concert?
I don't think he did those ones.
What
'cause
did you
those
remember
are-
most about the Kid Cudi concert? I mean, is there
What I
something?
remember most about Kid Cudi is we went. Like I said, it was a group of us, right? And so
Right.
Zach tagged along. Carrie came with
you
us.
gotta,
to
you gotta
that
set
one.
the stage here. This is a group of white guys from a religious college.
Yep. So yeah.
And did you take a bus down there?
No. We
Okay.
drove my car.
Okay.
Yeah. At
Which
this
car?
point, the white Scion.
Oh my gosh, that thing barely got anywhere. That thing would have like a
Yep,
2-cylinder engine or something.
Yep. So what
That's
happened
awesome.
is,
so you guys piled in the square box.
no. It was just so it was me and so at the time living in East Idaho was
Yeah.
me, Zach. Me and Zach were roommates.
Okay.
I was dating Carrie, so we
Okay.
were already dating. Carrie went with us.
Oh, Carrie went too.
Yeah.
awesome.
Yep. So the three of us drove in the Scion. Carl went down a day early and met
Okay.
up with some of our Salt Lake City or Utah buddies.
Gotcha.
And then when we met, so it was actually Carl and our buddy Connor. Connor Van Loo, right?
So let me. I want to clarify here. When you say Utah buddies, these are not buddies that you just found out as buddies. These are guys that you served.
Yeah. When I
possibly-
was in Argentina slinging Jesus for 2 years, these are the guys that I met. That's how I know Carl, right?
So paint a picture here. The guys you go down to watch Kid Cudi with are a bunch of white guys that look like you that all went to Argentina.
Well, yeah, I will say Carl is Chilean.
He's
from
Chilean.
Canada.
He looks about as white as y'all do, though.
Yep. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. I'm gonna send Carl these clips. This is gonna be great. Right.
But that's so cool that all you guys head
Yep.
down to watch Kid Cudi. And you said,
Yep.
who was the other one you said? You said,
Yeah, Connor and Carl went down a day early, and we
Okay.
met up with my buddy Justin,
Okay.
right? Who you know. He
know.
lives here in Nampa now.
know Justin, yeah.
Justin and a couple of his college buddies, right? And
Right.
I want to say I can't. That was before Adam and Gus became part of that group.
so just keep in mind, just a few years prior, you and all these young men have
Have been-
short haircuts and are wearing suits proselyting,
Proselyting.
in Argentina.
In Argentina, yeah. And so,
Love it, man.
I'm
That's the
laying the
greatest thing
groundwork.
ever.
These are all details that don't matter.
They do. They're so.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying
it sets
is-
this picture.
We had met Connor Van Loo's twin.
Okay.
Chase Van Loo was in Argentina with us.
Okay.
And then when we all met up at college, we were introduced to Connor.
Okay. Okay.
And the honest to goodness, the thing I remember most, actually there's two things. There's two things I remember most. One is that Connor Van Loo, he was a shorter guy. He didn't die or anything. He's
Yeah.
a short blonde haired guy. And this dude is a absolute tornado of energy,
Oh yeah.
right?
Right.
And he's the kind of guy that, like, when he meets you, he gets up and he's like, "Tell me about yourself." He
Okay,
kind of does that.
yeah.
He's that kind of guy,
Yeah,
right?
maybe even
he's
a
not
close talk,
no,
okay.
not quite like that in Seinfeld,
Right.
And he's
He's very interested.
He's very interested, right?
Gotcha.
And even by Connor standards, when we all met up in Salt Lake, he seemed on one.
Oh, he
Right?
was excited.
He was excited.
Yeah.
And we're like, Connor runs off to go to the bathroom or something, then we're like, is he going to be okay tonight?
Right.
Yeah.
Took
like,
speed or something. before he
what's
got
going
here.
on, man?
Yeah,
Like,
some Utah speed.
I know. And the inside joke was like, dude, we're going to be at the concert and we're going to look up and Connor's going to be on stage playing the bass with,
He's gonna weasel his way.
Yeah, somehow he's going to get up there.
He's gonna be dancing so much you're gonna call him
right?
up on stage.
And after the concert,
Yeah.
after the concert, he was still wired. He hadn't none of
The
it
whole
had,
time.
none of it had worn off.
Right.
And we were and I remember, stone's throw away from the concert, the place where we saw it. I can't remember what the name of the venue is.
Right.
It was downtown Salt Lake. So we went there, we got some food, and we're sitting in this restaurant eating food all together. And he's like, dude, let's keep the night going. I don't want
Yeah,
this
yeah,
to
yeah.
end. He
He's
was
ready
that
to
kind of guy,
party
right?
all night, yeah.
He's like, let's go to a club or something.
Right.
And we're like, what are we gonna do at a club?
Right.
Yeah.
We got no money. We're college kids.
Yeah, and we're not gonna drink or anything
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Right.
And I said, what you gonna order? A chocolate milk on the rocks? Right? And Carl
Lost
fell out laughing. And that was the only thing that semi-deflated Connor, because he realized I clowned him just a little bit,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And Carl fell out laughing. So I remember that, just Connor being absolutely wired.
Right.
And the other thing I remember is, like I said, Carrie went with me, and we stayed while Carl and Connor went and stayed with the dudes. Me and Zach and Carrie went and stayed with our friend Alana, who lived in Lehigh.
Gotcha.
Right?
Oh, was Alana Irish?
Yeah.
Okay, I met her.
Yep. Our Irish
college.
friend, and we
Yeah.
did that because Carrie was with me. We didn't
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
whole we're not going to go back to a dude's apartment and all stay
Right,
there.
right,
you know?
right, yeah.
So we went and
You want
we
to
went
be
and-
respectful of
Yeah,
Carrie.
yeah. We went and stayed with a little bit more of neutral ground, I guess I could say.
Yeah.
And
Hey, did y'all have plans to get married at this point, or y'all just having fun? And
no, we were just dating and stuff.
Okay.
I think like
deep down, did you know?
Yeah, probably. And
Interesting.
plus, you know,
How long before you asked her did you know? I know we're going off target here,
you
but
know,
I'm
I
curious.
think we dated for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And I knew after a year that we were probably
Did
that I
you?
wanted to get married to her.
That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah.
And I don't remember where this falls in that timeline.
Yeah.
And also, we went to a Christian school.
yeah.
So if you date within, you know, and we went to a Christian school that had a 3-semester track. You had fall semester, winter semester, and spring semester.
Okay.
And so the joke was meet in the fall, get engaged in the winter, married in the spring.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we didn't do that,
Right.
but we went to a school where people
A lot of
had
people
that on
did
their
that.
brain. And
Yeah.
so it was impossible for us to not have those conversations and it be
Right.
in the air. You know what I mean?
I got you.
So anyway, the thing that I remember is we're driving home from Alana's apartment. Me and Carrie sit in the front seat. Zach sit in the back, and she said, "I have something to tell you." And I said, "What?" And she said, "I got a text last night from an ex-boyfriend,
Oh.
and he said that he was at the Kid Cudi concert and he saw me across the way."
She got spotted.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
And-
That's funny.
and I don't remember the extent of it. I can't.
Did it stir him up?
That's what I'm kind of remembering might have happened.
Why would he have texted her if it didn't stir
Of
him a little
course,
bit?
Of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Because your wife is a beautiful lady. I'm sure she'd stir anybody.
She's so pretty. Yeah. And I don't remember much about that whole thing, but I
Right.
remember going, is this one of the guys with hair or without hair?
Why?
Because I knew she had dated a bald guy
At one point.
at one point.
Golly.
And she said, this is a guy without hair. And
Oh
I
my
said,
gosh.
we're good. We're okay.
You
know
didn't
what I
worry?
mean? I wasn't
you
worried.
had your luscious locks, so you knew you were safe at that point.
And that, that was just, I
got
I
you.
have nothing against bald dudes.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't do anything to deserve any hair.
Right.
But it was my way of masking my insecurity about the thing. You know what I
gotcha.
mean?
Yeah.
Because
I
when
gotcha.
you're dating a girl as pretty as my wife is,
Yeah.
dudes, you're like,
Yeah.
at least once a week, you're like, what the heck is she doing with a dude with me? I'm a schlub. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying.
But those are the two things I remember about the Kid Cudi concert.
That's cool.
But what I think, sorry, we're kind of backtracking out. What
That's
I
okay.
think you were getting around to is me and Carl going to Vegas.
Yeah.
So this is our first semester being roommates in
You and
Eastern
Carl.
Idaho.
Right.
And we flew to Vegas to go see Kanye.
You flew.
Flew to Vegas to go see Kanye.
You must have scrimped and saved for that $79.
You know,
because it's probably.
here's the thing.
It's probably not even a flight. It's probably like right back
Yeah,
down.
and here's the funny
Yeah.
thing is that
it's a 4-hour drive, right?
No, because it's from Eastern Idaho to Vegas.
Oh, Vegas. Oh, I was thinking.
We flew to
Salt Lake.
Vegas.
Oh, but Vegas has cheap flights because they want.
Well,
you to
here's
gamble.
why. Here's also why too.
Yeah.
We flew out of the Idaho Falls Airport,
So you had to drive a little bit.
which no.
Oh.
It was like 20, 30 minutes away.
Oh, okay.
We parked our
Okay.
car there, and then I paid the parking or whatever.
Yeah.
The Idaho Falls Airport
It's like one gate.
is like the size of a Kohl's.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
Kohl's department store.
Right. It's tiny.
It's teeny weeny, and there's a specific airline that flies out of there. I don't even remember the name of it.
Right.
And they like only fly to Vegas.
I got you.
Yeah. And
the
so
Vegas Express.
Yep. And I
Something
think
like
that I've told a couple of these stories before.
Yeah.
But I remember going through security at the Idaho Falls Airport, and all of a sudden we look, and the TSA guy says, "What in the Scooby-Doo is going on?"
Mm-hmm.
And we look, and there was white footprints leading through. Do you remember this story now?
I do. It was white.
There was
footprints.
white footprints leading through the metal detector, and they went "Ooh, ooh, ooh, ooh," and led to where Carl was standing. And Carl went, "Oops." And I said, "What in the world?" And he said, "You're the one that told me that baby powder gets rid of stinky feet." And I said, "I think you overdid it."
Yeah, you
and he was like,
overdid it.
"Yeah, I did." And so Carl had taken his shoes off at TSA and left a baby powder footprint trail through
Yeah.
security.
Right.
And also, my backpack goes through the thing, and
Yeah.
they are like, "There's something weird in here," and they pull out a box cutter out of my backpack.
Because you used to lay.
It was one of the tools I had. That was
Yeah.
the backpack. My work backpack had basically transitioned into my school backpack.
Gotcha.
And I was like, "I'm sorry, forgot
Yeah.
that was in there."
Yeah, we
You
got
can chunk
cocaine
that.
feet over here and box cutter man.
Which
right here.
which by the way, I don't know if I told you this when I was flying back from Argentina.
Yeah.
Same thing happened.
Another box cutter.
Nope.
Oh,
Worse.
You had a knife in there?
This was an international flight too.
And you had a knife in there? A gun?
Get ready. Get ready.
No, let me guess. Switchblade. A butterfly knife.
You're never gonna guess.
A bomb? Yeah, you were carrying a bomb, but it was on your person. It wasn't. Yeah.
Holy moly!
Yeah,
No,
what
same
was it?
thing. Backpack goes through the
Okay.
metal detector,
Right.
And they go, "There's a big metal thing in here,"
Right.
And I'm like, "What?" And they pull it out, and they're like feeling it, and they're like, "We have to empty it. We can't.
Right.
I can't feel what it is."
Yeah.
And they empty it, and they reach down in there, and there was a nightstick in there. I'm talking like
Oh.
that you throw out,
And it expands.
and it expands, and you can beat off assailants with it.
Because you needed that. You can beat
fight
off assailants.
You can
Beat
fight.
off
No, you can fight off assailants. Let's
Yes,
not
yes,
say you're.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that.
Which was something that one of the other missionaries had given to me.
Right.
And I was trying to give it away to somebody before I left, and I completely forgot about it.
just forgot it was in there.
And the lady looks at me, and she goes, "You can't bring this on a flight." And I
Right.
said, "I have no intention of bringing that on this airplane.
yeah.
Please keep it."
Right.
And she said, I feel like I need to do more than just keep it.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
So she's just going
And
to whoop you with it real
and
quick.
No.
Bend over.
Like we need to put you.
Yeah.
Like we need to talk to you. You know.
Right.
And I said, I understand that, but and I'm not trying to weasel out of this because I know how this looks.
Yeah.
But I
Keep
will.
in mind, you're just still wearing your suit and tie.
Suit and tie. It says there's a plaque on my chest that
Right.
says Elder Jetzel.
Elder Jetzel, yes.
Right. And there's also 40
Which
other.
is exactly what you would try to do if you were.
Yeah. I'm waiting. By the way, I'm waiting for a spy movie, a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
For the dude to be trying to get away from James Bond.
Yeah.
And he takes off his jacket and puts on a plaque and starts proselyting.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
James
yeah,
Bond
yeah,
walks.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, a little Hare Krishna stuff going on there.
Yeah. But there's also 40 other missionaries.
Right. There's
that
a
are
bunch of
flying
you.
home at the time.
Right.
Because it's not just the dudes from my area or the dudes and gals from my area. It was the dudes and gals from all over Argentina where, came
Flying
into
back.
Buenos Aires and then we're going
Right.
to fly back, right?
So that's a pile of you.
A ton of us, right?
Were you the only one with a beat stick? on you?
I believe so.
Whooping stick?
Yep. And so I said, I know you probably want to question me, and I can't blame you for that because I know how this looks.
Right.
But we are already late, and if you do question me, there's a good chance I don't get to go home.
Yeah, and I've been gone for 2
Right.
years. Yeah.
And she said, okay,
Yeah.
move it along.
Boy, that would have killed your mom, man, because she
I know.
was
Can
so
you
ready
believe
to
that?
see you.
Well, can you also believe if I had been, not only if I had missed my flight, but if I had been detained trying to get home?
That'd be a great story,
Yeah,
but it
would
wouldn't
be.
have gone well.
Well,
with
here's
your
what
mom,
happened.
yeah.
She takes that nightstick, that whooping stick, and she walks over, to this big glass display case.
and puts it in there like
And on it says, "Do not bring." And she just puts
She
it.
added it
She
to the
added
group.
it to, and in there was butterfly knives and
Yeah,
pistols
yeah,
and stuff. And she
right.
just put it right in the center of that display case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have signed it for her.
It said "No traer," which means "Do not bring." You know what I mean?
Right. That's a great story,
Yeah.
man.
But yeah, so
Yes.
me and Carl fly to Las Vegas. We stay with this is where the karaoke in a gay bar
Yeah,
story
yeah, yeah,
comes
we've
from.
told that
We
one.
did that
Yeah.
one that weekend. But yeah,
Never
that was
lived.
what
You've never lived
until
You've
you've
gone
done
to
karaoke
karaoke.
or at least witnessed karaoke in a gay bar. That was greatness.
during Halloween too, wasn't it?
Halloween weekend. Yep.
Yeah.
So me and Carl
So who'd
stay
you
with
see in Vegas? Is
Kanye.
Kanye.
Kanye West.
your very favorite?
Yeah.
At least close to the top. One of them.
You know what? You
it's
kinda
hard
have-
to choose your favorite, isn't it?
You also have to divide them into categories.
Yeah, yeah,
You
that's
know,
what I'm saying.
rappers aren't the same as singers, and singers aren't the same as bands.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But if we're talking hip hop artists, there's no one close.
Right.
He's the
Right.
GOAT. You know?
That's your GOAT.
Yep. Barring all of the nastiness that he's been into lately,
Right.
he's the GOAT.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't you do a speech on?
Oh, yeah.
At your Christian college.
On why he is the Da Vinci of our time, essentially. Yep.
Kanye, was it called Kanye is a Genius?
It
or
was
something?
the title was why because it was a public speaking course.
Yeah.
And it was our persuasive
Persuasive.
unit.
So you have to persuade him.
It was why Kanye West is the creative genius of our generation.
And that's greatness, man.
Yep.
At a
And I gave that right after we had gotten back.
oh, of course, because you
Yep.
were still on the high. I'm
Yep.
sure.
So this was the St. Pablo tour,
Yeah.
right? For anybody who knows the St. Pablo tour, he had a floating stage.
The idea that you and I are talking about this kind of silliness. Which
This is right after The Life of Pablo came out,
That's awesome.
right?
Yeah.
2016.
And what do you remember most about that? I mean, besides the gay bar, you know.
Well, I
Chicago
do
and the gay
remember
bar.
I met Carrie a week before.
Oh.
I got on my first date with Carrie a week before we left.
Did you have a little bit of an inkling that she was kind
She
of
was
awesome?
the prettiest girl.
Gotcha.
Holy moly,
And if you
she was
got if you
pretty.
got to choose somebody, you might as well choose somebody.
And I remember I was like an hour late to our date because I had just gotten a new job and I was doing onboarding for this new job.
Okay.
And it wasn't in the, it wasn't on campus. It was a little, and
Right,
the onboarding
right.
ran late.
And she waited.
Well, she waited because I was going to buy her dinner.
Oh, okay.
So she
She's
was
trying to
like,
get a free dinner.
She was like, I have to.
and she just wanted to see if you were actually 6'1" or just something that
Yeah.
Which you actually are 6'1".
Yeah, well, she was incredibly pretty, and she was one of the only girls I had gone on a date with to ask me what happened to your face.
right off the bat.
Yep. Well, I mean, not like, hey,
Yeah.
nice to meet you. What happened to your face?
what
I
happened to your face?
I have a scar on the side of my face,
Right.
which we can save that for another day.
Yeah, that's another story.
But she, we get our burritos and we're sitting and eating and doing the whole like, where you from? This whole deal.
Sure.
And she goes, what? Tell me what's going on here with your face.
Did you make up something really extravagant at
I
first?
said, well, I was pistol whipped when I was in Argentina.
Of course.
With a big smile on my face, and she was like, all right. And then I told her the real story.
The real
which,
story.
Stay tuned for another episode.
There
We'll
you
tell
go.
The real
We'll
story
tell the
at
real
some
story
point.
of how you got the scar.
So that was, I remember her being insanely pretty.
Yeah.
And she was the only girl that asked me what's wrong with your face. You know what I mean?
Not what's wrong with it, but
No, what
happened
happened to your
it.
face, which, if we're reading between the lines, is the same thing. you know
Yeah,
what
I guess that's true. Although it does give you a little bit of character, you know?
Yeah,
Gives
yeah.
you some character.
So I met Carrie a week before. So I met Carrie 1 week, BK, before Kanye. Yeah. Which, I'll never forget when I met her. It was in October of 2016.
There you go.
Because that's when Kanye was.
Right.
And it was at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Carl's cousin dropped us off on the Strip, and we walked around for a few hours.
So awesome.
And then we waited for the concert to get ready to go start, and we walked in. And I remember we were riding the escalator up to get to our, because T-Mobile Arena is practically a basketball arena.
Yeah.
If Las Vegas had a basketball team, that's where they would play probably.
Right.
And so it's the
How
same.
many fans were in there? It had to be
The stadium was full.
20,000, 17, 18, 20,000 fans.
And T-Mobile Arena in Vegas.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still T-Mobile Arena, but that's
Right.
what it was called at the time.
Right.
If we look it up, it's
Big.
It's one of the bigger arenas of that kind,
Gotcha.
and packed out. It was huge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There might not be a better place to go for a concert than Vegas. And when
Yeah.
your mom and I went to Vegas, I had talked her into going to a concert while we were there.
What'd you guys see?
We didn't see it because we went and she was on a break. But I saw that she
Wait.
had.
What do you mean on a break? On a
Well,
break from
some musicians,
what?
will do
residency.
nightly shows.
Residency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and there was 2 women that we considered going and watching.
Let me guess. Celine Dion.
That was one, but I said I'm not doing that. If we can go to the other one.
Okay. I have a guess. I know Madonna didn't do a residency.
No, it wasn't.
Was
Madonna.
it Britney Spears?
It was Britney Spears, and I was fired up.
Let me guess. Circus?
Circus is the one. I didn't care about the rest of them, but I wanted to hear Circus.
You were like, give me some all eyes on me
Yeah.
in the center of the ring, just like a
circus.
circus.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one. And she was like, I'm like, hey, if we're gonna go watch somebody, let's go see Britney. Because
Yep.
I mean,
And by the way, that was after she had gotten over the whole buzzed head thing, and she was about as hot as she could possibly be.
Yeah, and it wasn't about that for me because I had Shelly with me, and it was only a few years ago. It wasn't that long ago.
It would have
was-
been 2011 or 12.
That's when we went.
That's when I remember circus being the thing.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. She had already done that. This had to be. Let's see. We went to Vegas maybe.
8, 9, 10?
No, it would have been after that.
10, 11, 12. It would have been probably when I was in high school.
Let's see. 21. If we backtrack 5 years. You know,
It's
it
not
could.
2021.
It could have been 20. It could have been 2015. 20. It could have been anywhere in there. I'm not
Okay.
good with numbers.
Sure.
But I will tell you
Yeah.
this. The one number I do remember, and this is because it was at a concert I went to, which was Prince. And the girl that I was dating, that we were kind of breaking up slowly, and she got free tickets to go see Prince. and Reunion Arena, which held 17,007 fans.
Oof.
But that was if you're watching a basketball game. If the floor is filled, there was
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
20,000 people
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And Prince and Sheila E. came together.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember who opened for him. But I remember the year because there was a guy behind me, and it was New Year's Day or New Year's Eve going into the next year. That was the night of the concert. And a guy behind me kept saying, "Getting live in 85," because we were going into 1985. And he probably said it, "Prince getting live in 85." And
Was that the name of the tour or
shut up.
anything?
No. I think it was the 1999 tour maybe.
Okay.
But it was
okay, yeah.
was in 1984 and 85 was when he did this tour.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. It could have been a different tour.
Yeah.
But he played. Prince played all of his biggest hits. He just played all of his biggest hits.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy. But yeah, the guy behind me. But the other thing I remember is the girl I was with had a cousin, and her cousin was a knockout, boy, a knockout. Half Mexican, half blonde-haired girl. She was beautiful, and I was thinking. And this is when I was kind of finishing up the relationship.
Yeah.
And I went because who ain't going to go to Prince for free? you know?
Yeah. But part of you was thinking like,
Dude, how do I connect with that girl?
yeah,
right
how do I
there?
weasel in on this?
Yeah, but I had just graduated high school, and she was quite a bit younger, and I knew that was.
Yeah,
it was-
yeah, that's a
I'm not going
no-no.
to date a girl in
Yeah,
high
yeah,
school.
yeah.
But I remember a couple things.
From what I know about the place you grew up, there probably was plenty of dudes who were willing to do it, but you weren't one
no,
of
no,
them.
no, I wasn't going to do that. Yeah, that was the risk.
Little
I
white
was
trash
running.
kind of deal.
Yeah, and her dad was a tough dude. I knew who her dad was.
Yeah.
And actually and I might be saying too much, but her dad was the hitting coach for the Texas Rangers.
Oh, cool.
And he had gone to our high school years before and was just an incredible athlete, all state, all world.
Yeah.
Ended up playing for the Dodgers for a little while and then ended up
Wow.
being the hitting coach for the Texas Rangers.
That's cool.
So his daughter was this girl who had married a blonde-haired girl at their high school back in the day.
Wow, man.
Yeah. But I remember that, but my favorite concert ever was in really small venue in Fort Worth, downtown Fort Worth, called the Caravan of Dreams. And it was a
Okay.
jazz concert by a band nobody's ever even heard of, but it was a guy's name was Najee.
You've told me about Najee, and I've listened to a little Najee.
It's killer.
Is he a saxophone dude?
Yeah. So it was, but it's a
Is his
dinner.
album called like Blue Dream or something
I
like
can't
that?
remember, something like that. Yeah. Najee's theme, probably something.
Yep.
Najee.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've got the CD in my car right now. But we go in and it was a dinner theater, so there was probably maybe 50, 60 people there.
Yeah.
And they set us at tables for 6, and we all sat on one side, so we were all facing the stage, which was 20 feet away.
Yeah.
And it was me and Shelly, right? And for those that don't know, my wife was very fair-skinned, brunette, and me and 2 other black couples, and then we were the only white people in this whole joint,
This jazz club.
just jazz club. And we used to go all the time, and we loved it, right? We'd go to any jazz concert anywhere. But this one, we sat with these 2 older couples, and when the guy, after a while, there's a break in the music, and they take a break, and he says, what the crap are you doing here, man?
Yeah.
And I got a chance to talk with the guy and tell him how I'd grown up and what area I'd come from. And it was early on in Shelly's and I's more serious relationship.
Yeah.
And the whole time she was listening and she was just grinning. And I thought, this doesn't bother her that I grew up over there and this is my music and this is kind of how,
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching her and the whole time I'm thinking, I like that she's unbothered. She is completely unbothered by this, and she's just enjoying this.
That's one of the things I love
watching
most
this
about my
conversation.
wife.
Yeah.
I always say Carrie is down, which means she's
Yeah.
just like, let's go with the flow. Whatever happens, happens,
And that was your mom too. Yeah. She would go places we did not belong.
Yeah.
She always felt safe with me,
Sure.
but we'd be so unique in certain situations, and she would just be relaxed and calm and comfortable and hanging loose. And she enjoyed it, and we'd leave, and she would be like, "This is all new," but she enjoyed kind of the experience,
That's cool.
So yeah,
Yep.
But a couple of different concerts, and I think I mentioned the other one I went to, the Texas Jam with
Yeah.
Van Halen and
Yeah.
ZZ Top, and that one was in the middle of the summer, and it was at the Cotton Bowl, and it was so hot that they would bring out fire hoses and hose down the
That's
stands.
greatness, dude.
They would just hose.
I bet that was
everybody
the
down.
best.
It was, because people were like, you were wearing shorts and nothing else by the time it was
Yeah,
over with.
yeah.
Soaking wet.
Yeah.
Because it was just 105 degrees and 90% humidity.
It's gnarly,
just horrible.
dude.
Yeah.
That's so gnarly.
But I wasn't heavy into live music a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
And your mom and I went to the Knitting Factory. We got some free tickets one time.
Oh, here in Boise.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And somebody called and said,
Because the Knitting Factory is a chain, I think. So there's
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So there's like knitting factories around
But
the
I'd
US.
never been there, and my brother Craig
Yeah.
called me up and he said, I got some tickets to the
I
Fray.
remember because the Fray was one of those bands that I really liked.
Yeah.
And I remember you sending me a janky video of the Fray
Yeah.
on the,
Probably a flip phone. that you
the
could barely-
the worst thing you could possibly have filmed it on, and
Yeah.
being like, how do you end up at a band that I want to see? And I
Yeah.
was like,
and they were pretty good.
they were awesome.
Yeah.
The Fray rocked,
They were
man.
pretty good. Yeah.
Well, they didn't
enjoyed it.
rock. They were more soft, but yeah, I mean rock in a more metaphorical.
Right,
term,
right,
you know
right,
what I mean?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the Fray were awesome.
But, I mean, the reality is you and I have a pretty eclectic. I think the only kind of music we don't really care for is probably country and western. But
Yeah, yeah.
Other than that, I mean,
Yeah, I can
funk.
have fun at most.
My favorites are, I like passionate music. I like funk.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like R&B.
Yeah.
I love me some hair metal.
Let me tell you a couple more Kanye stories because I think you might
Okay,
like them.
okay.
Because where I was going with this is it's in a kind of NBA arena almost,
Okay, okay, yeah.
And so there's the escalators that lead up to the, and we had seats that were just like one or two rows up from the balcony,
Okay,
basically.
okay, yeah.
So we were looking down, which were
Great
they're the
seats.
best seats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because you
And
got
so
a great view down
I
there.
remember as we're going up the escalator, I looked back and Carl's on a step below me, and he's going. And he was rubbing his hands together. He
like
was
he had an evil plan.
so excited
Yeah.
because Carl's from Vancouver,
Right.
Canada,
Okay.
and they have a bigger concert scene there.
Sure.
So he had seen Kanye before, right?
Gotcha,
And he knew
gotcha.
what we were in store for, a show. You
And
know,
this was your first experience with Kanye.
this was my first big concert, right?
Oh, okay.
Because I had
Okay.
only been to the Knitting Factory. Actually, I had been to those two when I was in high school in the Knitting
Okay,
Factory. I went
right.
to another show at the Knitting Factory, and I went to a show in the Idaho Botanical Gardens outdoor summer show.
You've been to more concerts than I have, it sounds like.
You think so?
Well, I mean, I went to Kansas one year. I've been to a couple others.
I haven't been to that many.
haven't
Only
been
like
to a
I've
ton.
been to 10 or less,
Yeah, yeah.
But this was my first like arena show,
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I remember Carl like legit.
He was excited for you.
He was no. He was excited for himself. Yeah, but his outward demonstration of excitement was so palpable.
Let you know you were gonna get
I was
into
like,
it, huh?
oh, we're in for it, And then I remember him getting into an argument with a black dude who was sitting in our same row, but a friendly argument. But this guy was clearly drunk.
Okay.
Where he was like, "Nah, I don't have with Kid Cudi no more," because Kanye and Kid Cudi are like constant collaborators, at least up
Okay.
until this point.
Okay.
And he's like, "Nah, I don't have with Kid Cudi no more."
Right, right.
And Carl was like, "You have to have with Kid Cudi. Like he's
Right.
the bomb."
Yeah.
And Kid Cudi had come out with a couple of albums that were like so, or
Right.
at least to the general population.
Right, right.
And Carl was like, no. Kid Cudi just came out with a new album. You have to listen to it. It's a return to form. It's awesome, right? It's the Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying is the name of the album,
Okay.
which ended up being the concert that we went to,
Okay,
a
okay.
year later, the
Right.
Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying tour. And this guy going, all right, I'll give him a chance, right? And then the show started. And like I said, he was on a floating stage. The stage had these, cables that went up to the ceiling,
Gotcha.
and it literally moved around. And so, funny enough, people who had paid for floor seats
Oh, they were looking up at him a whole bunch.
up at him, and sometimes the stage was
In the
above
way,
them,
and they
so
couldn't
they
see
couldn't
him.
even see him.
I'm sure they had screens up that you could watch him on too.
well,
though,
not if
right?
he was right above you, and it had this orange underglow under it.
Yeah,
so
but
you
I
were
mean,
just looking
didn't
up
they
through
have
the lights.
screens on the
I don't
backstage?
remember there being screens at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you were either looking at him, and so in some cases the floor seats ended up being the worst seats in the
Gotcha.
house because he was right above you and he was performing above you.
That's-
but that thing
that's
was
crazy.
moving around and he was dancing on it. It was a blast, dude. It was awesome.
You know what?
And he hit everything you wanted
See, and
him
I'm
to
not.
play.
I've learned to, because of you, I've learned to appreciate Kanye. As a matter
Yeah,
of fact,
yeah.
that's why I asked you this question, because coming home, I was listening to Flashing Lights and
Yep.
Stronger.
Yep. He hit them all. He
Yeah.
hit everything and he
And I
hit
thought,
a
oh,
ton
these
from the new
Alex-
album.
Yeah.
And he hit and then he broke out a couple where you're like, oh shoot, he only features on this song, but it's a jam. We got to hear it, you
Right,
know. So
right,
he
right. That's
he
so
hit
cool.
everything we want. And
That's
I remember
slick,
after
man.
it, Carl had a little bit of that Connor energy where he was like, this night can never end.
Right.
And I remember we walked across the street to an IHOP, a 24/7 IHOP,
That's the perfect thing.
and we had ourselves a, you know, bacon and eggs and pancakes. We
Yeah.
had just popped another Red Bull each, and he's like, let's keep the night going all night long. And then by the time we were done with that
You had
pancakes,
the Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity, and then
by
you went.
the,
Then
by
you
the
went
time
ahead.
we had just each drank a new Red Bull, but by the time we were through with those pancakes, he was like, I have to call my cousin to come pick us up. I can't do
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
And that's when his cousin came and picked us up.
Gotcha.
We went back, flew back to Eastern Idaho.
When you eat a lot, it'll take it out of you. too.
Especially if it's breakfast food and pancakes,
Yeah.
man. Forget about
Yeah.
it. But
That's right.
That concert rocked super hard.
That's slick, man. Well,
And that's,
those are
and, you
some
know,
good stories,
that's
boy.
probably, I've seen, you know, there is something about seeing a band versus seeing like a performer that has like a full band with them.
Yeah.
Kanye was a one-man show.
Right.
He didn't have any openers. You know, he went on.
It was all him.
You only saw him.
Yeah.
And so there is a, you know, I will say, as much as I probably do say that's my favorite concert ever, there is something lost
Yeah.
to seeing like a full band play.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like Chance the Rapper had a full band with him, you know.
Right.
And a couple other people that I've seen have full bands. So there's something to be lost there a little bit. But still, I have to say that Kanye
Yeah.
was the best I've ever seen.
And one of the reasons that I think we connect with music is because when I was a kid, my dad listened to country and western, and that's all he played. And if I played something, he would gripe about it and say, "What that harebrained music you're listening to, right?"
Yeah.
And I remember it was one of those. It's one of those times when you're a kid, you say, "I ain't gonna do that," right?
Yeah.
And so I remember making a choice to continue to listen to new music, and try to like it to the extent where I could enjoy it with you guys. And I think whenever we drove the car, I would always let you guys do that, as long as they didn't say any bad words or.
Which I mean,
Then
that
you
was
guys
bef-
could
that was
control the
before-
radio.
That was really mostly before aux cords came around, and you could listen to.
Yeah.
If you didn't have CDs, you were listening to the radio. So
Yeah.
The radio never had any, you know, profanity. or
right.
anything
And so
on it.
I would get in the car with you, and y'all would work the radio, and I didn't care.
Yeah.
And I think it helped me connect with you guys a little bit.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
But shoot, man, that would be a concert that I would love to go to. I'd love to
Kanye?
see Kanye. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know about the other ones, but Kanye for sure.
Yeah.
And I know there's
And it was the perfect time to see Kanye. You
Yeah.
know, like a lot of some of the guys I've seen, I think, you know, like I've seen some artists when they first pop and their first album comes out.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And then, you know, a lot of artists have their sophomore slump where, you know, that first album is something else, and then
Right.
everything else is okay after that.
Sure.
And you go, dang. If I had to see him, it had to have been at that point. And I think that's one of those, you know, Kanye deals. I've loved, you know, a lot of his music up until the last couple of years, you know.
Yeah.
I really loved, you know, Ye. I loved Donda. I loved some of the albums after that.
Right.
But the St. Pablo tour had to have been like the peak time to see him.
Yeah.
Especially because he played everything that you would have wanted from Dark Fantasy, from Graduation, from
Gotcha.
his early albums.
Gotcha.
He played everything you wanted. And so it's
That's
like,
slick.
you
That's
know,
slick. Yeah.
seeing artists at their pinnacle has to be one of those deals.
So you know what I'm going to do? I think what I'm going to do after you post this video,
Okay.
I think I'm going to just put some links to some of the songs we've talked about.
Yeah.
You know, for Najee in there, and I'll probably put the Alarm song in there.
Yeah.
And you should find a couple of those and dump them in there too.
Okay.
Because that would be
Okay.
kind of cool. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll throw in a couple of my favorite Jimmy Eat World songs.
There
I'll
you
throw
go.
I'll throw in a couple of the Kanye songs.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll be
Jack's
our
Mannequin.
Yeah. I'll do that. I'll do it. Yeah. We'll be our own commenters. You know.
There you go. Which
Yep.
we are anyway. I think we're.
Yeah.
our
We
own
don't have.
comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But-
to our tens of viewers.
Our
you know.
tens of viewers. That's right. That's right. Well, hey, that's a great conversation. That's a
Yeah.
good
That
one.
was a fun one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, we'll see you next time.